"You're going to regret this," someone muttered behind the wine tower, but no one dared to admit it out loud. The music had stopped. Glasses sat half-raised. I watched them, all of them, frozen mid-laughter like a photograph. Her co-workers, those polished, too perfect people in their fitted blazers and hand-picked compliments, were now staring at Serafina as if she had spontaneously combusted. She didn't blink. Her smile, wide and rehearsed, hadn't yet had time to fall. But mine had. Minutes earlier, she had been the radiant centerpiece of the evening, the unofficial queen of the corporate mixer. Someone had even compared her to a brilliant strategist in heels. Someone else, I think the guy with the ridiculous paisley tie, had said she could sell a paperclip to a minimalist. And I just stood there, sipping cucumber water and trying not to look like her personal Uber driver. They all loved her, but they didn't know her. Not like I did. I knew the shade of silence she slipped into when I brought up kids. I knew the small, sharp flinch in her jaw when she thought I might ask to join her weekend offsites. I knew how she started saying, "We're slammed," instead of, "I'm working late." And I knew the fake laugh she used when she wanted to sound amused, not guilty. So when her coworker Tasha lifted her champagne and purred, "To the woman who redefined client relations this quarter," I already felt the warning bells. But I still wasn't ready for the sentence that followed. It wasn't screamed. It wasn't meant to be heard outside their little circle. But I did. And so did everyone else. Well, sleeping with the client did make the negotiations easier. Time stopped. The words floated above the laughter like smoke. Slow, thick, undeniable. You could almost hear the molecules in the room rearrange themselves. A guy in suspenders coughed into his hand. Someone dropped a shrimp skewer onto the tile. Even the bartender, halfway through slicing a lemon, paused mid-cut. Serafina's lips parted, slightly. No sound. Her eyes darted toward me. Just once. Then back down to her glass. She didn't deny it. Didn't laugh it off. Didn't blink. Just stood there, trapped between the truth and the performance, like a dancer mid-step in a routine she didn't choreograph. I didn't yell. I didn't make a scene. But I did take the tiny envelope from my jacket pocket. The one I had planned to give her that night, with 2 concert tickets inside and a note that said, "Let's find each other again." And I laid it quietly on the table next to her untouched appetizer plate. Then I turned and walked out. No shoe squeaking. No chair scraping. Just the long silence behind me, and her smile finally breaking in the reflection of the glass door as it shut. I didn't remember walking to the elevator. I didn't remember the music from the rooftop shifting to something jazzy as I stepped inside. What I do remember is the metallic taste in my mouth and the distinct sense that I had just witnessed the moment my marriage lost its shape. Not shattered, not exploded, but melted, slowly and precisely, in front of a dozen people holding flutes of rose. I got into my car and just sat there. Engine off. The faint glow of the dashboard casting soft shadows across the concert tickets still in my hand. I couldn't bring myself to tear them. That would have felt dramatic. And nothing about what happened was theatrical. It was cold, clinical, like a document being quietly shredded in a backroom office. I didn't drive home. I didn't even know where to go. So I pulled into the parking lot of an all-night donut shop, sat in a booth that smelled like fryer oil and lemon cleaner, and stared at the condensation on my plastic cup of water for over an hour. Somewhere between minute 30 and minute 50, my phone buzzed. It was a message from her. "Can we talk? I'm so sorry you heard that. Not sorry it was said. Not sorry it happened. Just sorry I heard it." I didn't answer. Instead, I did something I hadn't done in years. I opened my notes app and started writing. Not a reply. Just everything. A list of the little things I had ignored. The overly specific perfume that wasn't mine. The nights she came home, exhausted, but showered and glowing. The random hotel rewards points on our shared card that she brushed off as a mistake. The inside jokes she had with her team that I never understood, always dismissed with, "You had to be there." And then I wrote one line I hadn't let myself think until that moment. She's been with someone else. Maybe more than one. I don't know if it was that thought or the way my hands trembled as I typed it, but something shifted. For the first time in years, I wasn't sad. I was aware, like fog lifting after a long, quiet storm. When I finally got home, sometime close to 1:30 a.m., the house was dark, except for the bedroom lamp, which glowed faintly behind the half-closed door. I opened it slowly. She was sitting on the bed in her dress, shoes kicked off, mascara smudged like she'd been crying or rubbing her eyes too hard. She looked up, but I didn't step inside. You didn't come back, she whispered. I almost laughed. Neither did you. I didn't mean it to happen that way, she said. Her voice was steady, practiced, like she'd gone over the lines in her head 100 times. It was a stupid joke. Tasha talks too much. I tilted my head. So it wasn't true? She hesitated, blinked, swallowed. And that was the answer. I need you to say it, I said, even though I already knew. Say it to me, please. She looked away. And then, softer than before, with a voice that barely held itself together. It was one time. He was a client. It was after the San Diego conference. I didn't plan it. It just happened. I interrupted. That's always how it starts, right? She nodded once. Didn't argue. I didn't yell. I didn't throw anything. I just stood there, watching the version of her I thought I knew fade into someone else, someone who didn't belong in our bedroom anymore. Someone who could sit smiling beside me on a rooftop bar while hiding an entire separate version of herself in plain sight. I turned to leave, but she called out, Alden, wait. Please. My name sounded foreign coming from her lips, like a nickname I didn't recognize anymore. What? I asked, hand on the doorframe. Her voice cracked. There's more. There's more. 2 words I hadn't prepared for, not even in my most paranoid spirals. I stood there with one foot in the hallway and the other still in the room we used to sleep in together, the silence between us growing louder than anything else in the house. I didn't move, didn't breathe too deeply. I just waited. Maybe some foolish part of me hoped she'd say, no, never mind, and spare me from hearing the rest. But she didn't. She wiped her face and patted the mattress beside her like I might actually sit down. I didn't. She took a deep breath. It wasn't just him. I didn't respond. I couldn't. My brain was still registering the words, like someone pouring salt into a wound before it even stopped bleeding. There was a stretch, she continued, maybe 4, 5 months, where I don't know what I was doing. I felt like I was living someone else's life. I was trying to keep up. Everyone around me seemed so alive, so bold, and I felt like I was still married to this version of myself that had stopped growing. She said it all like a monologue, like she'd been waiting for an opening to finally spill this neatly rehearsed pain. So you outgrew me, I said flatly. She didn't deny it. That was the worst part. She just looked at me with watery eyes that were trying too hard to seem honest. There were a few men, she added, each word falling like bricks in my gut. One of them was someone in-house. Another was a client I met on a weekend trip. And one was, she paused, someone you've actually met. I closed my eyes. I didn't want to guess. I didn't want to start imagining all the handshakes, the casual backslaps, the polite laughs I had shared with someone who had probably taken off his belt in the same bedroom where I folded our laundry. My knees felt weak. My face hot. I opened my mouth, but nothing came out. I was drowning in air. I finally asked, was it Coulter? Her lips tightened into a straight, guilty line. I'm sorry, she whispered. I let out a soft, bitter laugh. So that smile you gave him tonight, the one that looked like it belonged to someone single, that wasn't nostalgia. That was present tense, wasn't it? She didn't answer. She didn't need to. I walked into the living room. I needed distance. Needed clarity. Something in me knew that if I didn't physically separate myself from her in that moment, I might say something I couldn't take back. Or worse, forgive her on reflex just to end the pain. I sat on the couch and stared at the framed picture of us from 3 years ago, a beach photo from a trip we took to Charleston. We looked happy, but now I couldn't tell if that was real or if I had just imagined it all. She followed me out, barefoot, still in that off-white dress from the party. The same dress that, hours ago, I had thought made her look angelic. Now it just looked like costume jewelry, something shiny and fake meant to distract from the truth underneath. I didn't plan to tell you tonight, she said quietly. I wanted to protect you. I snapped my head toward her. You wanted to protect yourself, Serafina. Don't twist this. If Tasha hadn't slipped up, I'd still be at that bar thinking I married a career woman, not a con artist with a husband-shaped accessory. That finally broke her. She sat down on the far edge of the couch and started sobbing into her hands. But I felt nothing, not even sympathy, just a numbness spreading through my chest, a vacuum replacing every emotion I had left. Then, my phone lit up on the coffee table. Message from unknown number. You deserve to know. I'm sorry she made you the last to find out. My hands trembled as I read it. Who's been texting me about you? I asked. Her crying stopped. Her head lifted, slow, deliberate, and I saw something in her eyes I hadn't seen all night. Fear. Her eyes locked onto the glowing screen in my hand as if it were radioactive. I watched her body language shift in real time, shoulders stiffening, breath halting. The crying stopped like a switch had been flipped, and in its place was something rawer. Not regret. Not sadness. Something closer to panic. "Who is it?" she asked, voice tight. Not, "What did it say?" No, she already knew. She just didn't know how much. I held the phone up. Unknown number. No name. Just this message. I read it aloud again, slowly this time, watching her reaction with every syllable. "You deserve to know. I'm sorry she made you the last to find out." For a full 3 seconds, she said nothing. Then she stood up, quickly, too quickly, and began pacing in small circles near the window. "It's someone from work," she muttered, more to herself than to me. "It has to be. Someone trying to blow this up." I blinked. "So they're the problem now? The person warning me about you?" Her pacing stopped. "That's not what I meant." "You know what? I think it's exactly what you meant." I could feel the bitterness rising, pooling in my throat. I was exhausted, mentally, emotionally, completely, but something in me refused to let her start rewriting this. She sank into the armchair across from me, staring at the carpet. "It's probably Emery." "Who's Emery?" "A girl in PR. She overheard something a few weeks ago. I didn't think she'd. I mean, she's been on thin ice at work. She always has an angle." "You think she's doing this for leverage?" "I don't know." She looked at me, eyes wide and pleading. "It doesn't matter. What matters is that I'm telling you now." "You didn't tell me, Serafina," I snapped. "You were forced into a corner by your own friend's careless joke and someone else's conscience. That's not bravery. That's being caught." She exhaled sharply, stood again, walked into the kitchen, and leaned against the counter like she needed something to hold her up. I followed her, slowly, phone still in hand. I don't know what made me open the messaging app, but I did. And there it was, another incoming text from the same unknown number. "She'll lie. She always does. Check the blue folder in the bottom drawer of her home office desk. It'll explain everything." I looked up from the screen and stared at the back of her head. "Serafina," I said quietly, "why is someone sending me instructions like we're in a scavenger hunt?" She didn't answer, didn't even turn around. So I moved, walked past her, down the hallway, into her office. I hadn't been in there in weeks, maybe longer. It always smelled like lavender and printer ink. Everything was arranged with painful precision. Minimalist. Clean. Cold. Bottom drawer, left side. I pulled it open. Inside was a blue folder. Plain. Unlabeled. But thick. Heavy. I sat on the floor and opened it. The first thing inside was a printed email thread between Serafina and someone named M, just the initial. Dozens of messages. Flirtatious. Late night. Coded, but not subtle. And then came receipts. Hotel reservations. A digital invoice from a spa in Santa Fe. Restaurant bookings in cities I hadn't known she visited. Some of them were dated during times she claimed to be at leadership retreats. Then, near the back, I found it. A photograph. Grainy, probably taken from a distance, but clear enough to see. Her. In a robe. Standing on a balcony. With a man. A man I recognized. I stared at the picture until my stomach turned and the edges of my vision began to blur. I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't sad. I was humiliated. I stood up, walked back into the kitchen, and dropped the folder on the island in front of her. She didn't move. I pointed to the photo. "You didn't just cheat on me. You paraded it around like I didn't exist. Like my love was just background noise to your real life." She slowly slid the folder toward her, flipped through a few pages, and then closed it. "That photo was taken by Emery," she said. "I know it because she threatened to use it against me if I didn't help her get promoted." I stared at her, trying to decide if I was hearing desperation or delusion. "And the rest of it? All those receipts and messages? Are those her fault too?" "No," she whispered. "Those are mine." For a long moment, neither of us moved. The house was so quiet I could hear the low hum of the refrigerator behind her. Then I said something I didn't plan. Something that felt like it had been hiding in me for years. "I don't think you've loved me in a very long time. And I think I've known that. I just didn't want it to be true." She didn't argue. Didn't deny it. And when I picked up my keys and opened the front door, she didn't try to stop me. But my phone buzzed again. One final message. "Ask her about the apartment." I stood in the open doorway with my hands still gripping the knob, my body frozen in place. Not because I had second thoughts about walking away. No, I was beyond that. It was the message that stopped me. Ask her about the apartment. My pulse spiked like someone had just slipped a key into a lock I didn't know existed. For a few seconds, I considered ignoring it, leaving the house, never looking back. But the truth had a grip on me now, not just the truth, but the need for all of it, no matter how ugly. I shut the door slowly, turned back around, and looked at Serafina, still standing at the kitchen island, one hand resting on the closed folder, her other trembling ever so slightly. "What apartment?" I asked. Her eyes didn't lift. She pressed her lips together like someone bracing for a blow. And then, finally, she spoke. "It's not what you think." "Please don't," I said, stepping toward her. "Not again. Just tell me what it is. Don't package it in pretty words." She pulled out a stool, sat down, and stared at the folder like it was an old wound. "It's a studio. In the laundry building. I've been renting it for about 7 months." I blinked. 7 months? Why? You've never even mentioned that building. I've passed it with you. "It's not under my name," she added, voice flat. "It's under one of the firm's auxiliary corporate listings. We use them for out-of-town clients, VIPs, and, apparently, for affairs." "You're telling me the company paid for a love nest?" She winced. "Not exactly. I use the corporate access, but I reimburse the cost under different expense codes." "So they just let you do that?" She shook her head. "They didn't know. Nobody did. Except him." My stomach twisted. "The man in the photo?" "Yes." "And how many nights did you spend there? Be honest." She looked me in the eye for the first time since that rooftop. "More than I can count." I leaned against the wall, the air feeling heavier than before. "While I was here, folding your laundry, making your lunches, sending you stupid good morning texts like some lovesick intern, you were living another life 3 miles from our house." She didn't reply. My voice dropped. "Did you sleep there after work, or did you lie and tell me you were out of town?" "Both," she said, barely above a whisper. "Sometimes I'd book fake flights. I even left a suitcase at the apartment to make it easier." I felt something in me break, something quiet and irreversible. There was no screaming, no plate smashing, just the slow erosion of what little trust had remained. And yet, I still wasn't done. I opened my phone again and typed a message back to the unknown number. "I know about the apartment. What else?" The reply came fast. Too fast. Like they'd been waiting. "She's not the only one who used it." I stared at those words, rereading them again and again. What the hell does that mean? Serafina tilted her head. "What?" I read it aloud. She frowned, confused. "I don't know what they're talking about." I watched her. Carefully. "Are you sure? I told you everything." But that was the problem. I didn't believe her anymore. I couldn't tell what was confession and what was calculated damage control. The pieces didn't fit. The affair was bad enough, but this started to feel deeper. Coordinated. I walked to the office again. Not to open more folders. I wanted her laptop. "Password?" I asked, holding it up. "Don't do this," she said, standing suddenly. "Please." "Password," I repeated, firmer. She hesitated. "Cairo. With a K. It's our first cat." That broke me a little more. I typed it in. The desktop opened. No files on the home screen, but I wasn't looking for Word docs. I went for the messaging apps. Slack, email, LinkedIn, and finally, WhatsApp. It was there. A thread labeled Project Orion, Conf with 4 participants. Her, M, someone labeled S, and another with just a single letter, D. The last message was timestamped last night, sent while I stood sipping soda at that rooftop bar, trying not to look like a fool. D. Confirm apartment cleared by Thursday. Client visit scheduled. No trail. Client visit. No trail. I scrolled up. Dozens of coded messages disguised beneath harmless business talk. Deliveries. Packages. Showroom walkthroughs. All covering up a revolving door of private meetings, hidden transactions, possibly worse. I turned the screen toward her. This isn't just about cheating. This is something else. Serafina's face drained of color. And that's when she said the thing I will never forget, not for as long as I live. "You weren't supposed to see that. You really weren't." Her voice had changed. It wasn't pleading anymore. It wasn't sad or broken. It was resigned, controlled. The kind of voice someone uses when they know the cards are all on the table and the only thing left is deciding who picks up the wreckage. I set the laptop down on the dining room table and stared at her. "What is Project Orion?" I asked, feeling my throat tighten as the words came out. Serafina didn't move. She blinked slowly, calculating. "It's not what you think," she said, and I laughed, not because anything was funny, but because that exact phrase had been her crutch through every lie so far. "Stop telling me that," I said. "You've lied about everything, about the men, the apartment, the flights. You were running 2 lives, Serafina. Maybe 3. So now, for once, tell me the truth. All of it." She looked toward the sliding glass door, like she wanted to escape through the darkened backyard. Then she walked to the bar cart, poured herself a half glass of red wine with the steadiness of someone who'd practiced this moment in her head 1,000 times, and leaned against the counter like a CEO about to deliver bad news to a boardroom. "You ever wonder how a company like ours grew so fast?" she asked. "Even through the crash? Even when bigger firms were folding?" I didn't answer. "We were bleeding money a year ago," she continued. "Top clients were vanishing. Investors wanted results. Fast. So someone came in, He wasn't officially on payroll, but he had pull. Real pull. Connections that could get us contracts overnight." She took a sip. "He offered a solution. Unofficial. Off the books. High-profile clients with high demands. In exchange for access, nights at the apartment, special arrangements, we got guaranteed deals, renewals, equity options. I was asked to manage it. Quietly. Discreetly." I blinked. "You were a pimp," I said, almost choking on my own voice. She flinched, but didn't deny it. "It wasn't framed that way. These weren't normal exchanges. These were relationships. Mutually beneficial. Sometimes they lasted weeks, sometimes a single night. I didn't ask questions. But you participated," I snapped. "You weren't just arranging things, you were one of them." She nodded. "At first it was just a test, to prove it could work. Then it became routine, and I got good at it." I felt like vomiting. I sat down, knees weak, heartbeat thrumming in my ears. "You let yourself become a transaction." "No," she said sharply. "I let myself become an asset." "You think that's better?" Her voice cracked. "It's not. But it's the truth. I became what they needed because I was terrified of losing everything I built. The house, the title, the status, yes, even you. I thought if I could make it all stable again, I could find a way out eventually. But it never stopped. And the more I lied, the easier it got." "And the others?" I asked. "Coulter? The client in San Diego? They were all part of it," she admitted. "Some were willing. Some were reluctant. But nobody said no. Not if they wanted to stay in the loop." I stood up. "And what about me? Was I just some comfortable background prop while you ran your underground empire?" She looked down. "You were my anchor. My normal. And I thought if I kept you in the dark, at least one part of my life would stay pure." "That's the most pathetic thing I've ever heard," I said, and I meant it. Then something clicked. I opened the laptop again, opened the chat. "This person?" I asked. "Who is he?" She hesitated. "I don't know his real name. I only met him once. Everything else was encrypted, handled through aliases, preloaded SIMs. He's not from here." I paused. "Then how do you know he'll clear the apartment? What's happening on Thursday?" That's when her face changed. For the first time that night, she looked afraid. Not guilty. Not ashamed. Afraid. "I wasn't supposed to be home Thursday," she said. "Nobody from our office was. There was going to be a hosting." "A what?" "A session. High-value clients. Important ones." He said it was sensitive, international. Bigger than the others. I backed away slowly. "So this isn't just corporate sleaze anymore. This is trafficking." She opened her mouth to argue, but the word hung between us like a curse neither of us could erase. That's when my phone buzzed again. Unknown number. "You need to leave. Tonight. It's not safe anymore. He knows you've seen the files." I showed her the screen. She dropped her glass. The wine glass didn't just fall, it shattered, exploding against the tile in sharp, crystal fragments that scattered under the island and pinged off the baseboards like shrapnel. Serafina didn't move to clean it. She just stared at the message on my screen like it was a death sentence, her lips slightly parted, her breath shallow. I should have felt vindicated, finally having the upper hand after everything she'd done, but I didn't. I felt dread creeping up the back of my neck like cold fingers. "What does he mean? It's not safe anymore?" I asked, my voice low. "Why would someone like that come after me? I'm no one. I just found out. I didn't do anything." Serafina sat down slowly at the edge of the couch and rested her head in her hands. "Because that's not how this works," she whispered. "It doesn't matter if you're involved. If you've seen the names, the numbers, if they even suspect you've copied anything, they'll assume you're a liability. You don't have to leak anything. You just have to exist. Her words dropped like lead in the silence that followed. I paced the living room in tight, frantic circles, trying to think clearly, but my thoughts were already spiraling. The files. The messages. The names. Had I screenshotted anything? Had I left traces by opening that WhatsApp thread? Had someone from their side already been tracking her laptop activity? What happens Thursday? I asked again. You said it's international. What kind of clients are we talking about? She looked up, her eyes glassy. I don't know who exactly. Just that they're not from here. That they travel with aliases. And that they don't like attention. And they were going to use the apartment? Yes. And you were going to be there? No. I was going to be out of state. My part was over after arranging the keys and the check-in through Dee's people. I thought that was the end of it. I sat down across from her, suddenly feeling the weight of something much bigger than betrayal, something criminal, dangerous. This wasn't about affairs anymore. This was organized. Silent. Hidden in plain sight under the mask of a tech company with yoga breaks and conference room foosball. How many people know about this? I asked. 5, she said. Maybe 6. Me, M, D, the other 2 from the thread, S and Tasha. My head jerked up. Tasha? The one who joked about you sleeping with the client. Yeah. So she wasn't slipping up, I realized aloud. She was testing the water. Seeing if I'd react. Or warning you, Serafina said softly. I always wondered if she was looking for a way out, too. I opened my phone again and typed back to the unknown number. Who are you? Why are you warning me? 3 dots. Then, because I used to be her. Until I ran. I froze. I stared at Serafina. Did you ever meet a woman named Leah? Her eyes widened. Yes. A former strategist. Vanished a year ago. Everyone said she burned out and quit suddenly. I showed her the screen. Her jaw trembled. That's her. That's Leah. I typed quickly. Leah? Are you still in the city? No. I left. Changed everything. You need to disappear tonight. Delete everything. Don't try to fight. Don't try to expose it. Just leave. Serafina reached over and took my phone. She's right. You can't go to the police. They won't believe you, and even if they did, by the time they act, we'll both be gone. Or worse. So what now? I asked, voice cracking. I leave my job, my house, my life, everything, just vanish? That's your plan. It's the only way, she said. They monitor everything. Devices, emails, even movement. You disappear, or you get folded into it. I sat back, trying to absorb it all. I thought heartbreak was the worst feeling a person could endure, the feeling of being replaced, being unwanted. But this was something else. It was betrayal buried under layers of deception, criminality, and fear. It was watching someone you loved turn into a stranger and then finding out the stranger was just one mask out of many. I looked around the house at the photos, the couch we picked out together, the books I'd never finished reading because I was always waiting up for her. You coming with me? I asked, not really knowing why I still cared. She didn't answer at first. Then, I can't. If I disappear now, they'll trace it back to you. But if I stay and act normal, you might have a shot. I'll delay the handoff. Say I got sick. Say I broke protocol. Buy you a day, maybe 2. And then what? Then you become someone else. Erase everything. Get as far away as you can. And don't ever contact me again. We packed in silence. She handed me an envelope with cash I didn't ask for. A burner phone I didn't want. And a set of directions I didn't understand. But I followed them. Because for the first time in my life, I wasn't running from love. I was running for my life. I didn't drive to any hotel. I didn't hide in a rented room or flee with a fake passport. What I did, that first night, was find a bench at a truck stop 30 miles outside the city, sit with a vending machine coffee in my hand, and stare at the quiet stretch of highway beyond the lot until the sun came up. I didn't sleep. I didn't even blink much. I just let the silence soak in, the kind you don't notice until your entire world has been stripped clean. I could have stayed in hiding, could have followed Leah's advice and wiped myself off the grid. But sometime around 6:15 a.m., when the first diesel truck rumbled to life and the cashier opened the door to let in the smell of cinnamon buns and diesel, something clicked inside me. I realized I wasn't scared anymore. Tired? Absolutely. But not scared. Because fear requires you to believe you still have something to lose, and after Serafina, the apartment, the files, and all the secrets layered behind her smile. I didn't. I wasn't going to be a ghost. I was going to be a man again. I didn't go to the authorities with the folder or the laptop. I gave everything to a journalist. Not a big-name national figure, but someone local, someone hungry. Someone I could meet in the back of a bookstore near the river who didn't care about protocol, only the truth. I gave her a burner phone, the hard copies, and one warning: don't trust names. Trust proof. I didn't wait around to see what happened next. Instead, I drove. I found myself 4 states away in a town called Larkwood. Quiet place. Trees that bloom late. A diner where everyone knows your name by your 3rd cup of coffee. I got a room in an old roadside inn, paid 2 months in advance in cash. Started working odd jobs under my middle name, Ellis. It was the first time in years someone called me that. Felt like the first time someone saw me, too. It's strange what peace actually feels like. It's not fireworks or big revelations. It's the quiet relief of not waiting for a lie to crack. It's falling asleep without checking someone's phone in your head. It's realizing you don't have to explain yourself to anyone anymore. One morning, as I was helping repaint a porch for a retired teacher named Mrs. Delaney, she asked me what brought me here. I smiled and said, I took the wrong turn somewhere that turned out to be the right one. Weeks passed, then months. One day, I checked the news while on break at a gas station. The headline was buried under finance updates and local council noise. Media firm under investigation for international bribery and fraud scheme. There were no names in the article, no photo of Serafina. But I knew, somewhere in the middle of that chaos, a spotlight had been flipped on and she was standing in it. Whether she ran, confessed, or stayed to face it, I'll never know. And I don't need to. She made her choices. And for the first time in forever, I made mine. I still have the envelope she gave me, with $200 bills I never spent and a folded note I never opened. Maybe I will one day. Maybe I won't. But I did keep one thing: the concert tickets. Not because I'm holding on to what we had, but because they remind me of who I was before the lies. A man who believed in new beginnings. Who still planned dates. Who still hoped. That version of me didn't die in the fire. He just had to walk through it to find something better. Last week, I started taking classes at the community college. Communications and digital media. A fresh start. Nothing flashy. But it's mine. And I met someone. Her name's Ray. She asked me about my past once. I told her, it's long, complicated, and behind me. She said, perfect. Mine too. We laughed. And for once, I didn't feel like a cautionary tale. I felt like a man who finally stopped begging to be loved by someone who never knew how and learned how to live without apology. And that's enough. That's more than enough.